Nathan O'Connor had always lived a life of control. A successful lawyer in his late 40s, he had built a reputation for being sharp, determined, and reliable. His home, a modern house nestled in a quiet, upscale neighborhood in California, was a reflection of the life he had crafted for himself, orderly, peaceful, and free from the chaos of his past. His world was simple, predictable. Work during the day, gym in the evenings, and occasionally dinner with a small circle of friends. Everything was precisely where it should be, neatly tucked away in its place. But the stillness of his life was about to be shattered. Nathan sat by his window, watching the last remnants of sunlight dip below the horizon. He had just wrapped up a long day of work, his mind still sharp, but it wandered. Brief thoughts about his family, about Ethan. He hadn't spoken to his twin brother in months. The bond between them, once inseparable, had frayed over the years, worn thin by misunderstandings, anger, and distance. There was always something between them, something unsaid, but Nathan never truly knew what. Ethan had his own life, his own family. He'd always justified it to himself, telling himself that their separation was just another consequence of life. Still, Nathan couldn't help but wonder. Maybe it had been his fault for not trying harder to bridge the gap. Maybe, just maybe, he had failed as a brother. The sharp sound of his phone ringing jolted him from his thoughts. He glanced at the screen, an unfamiliar number. His heart skipped a beat. "Hello?" he answered, his voice steady but laced with an unease he couldn't place. "Nathan." A frantic voice came through, barely recognizable. It was Ethan. "I need your help." Nathan's stomach tightened. The voice on the other end was rushed, desperate. "What's wrong?" he asked, but Ethan didn't answer. Instead, there was a brief pause, followed by, "Just meet me, please." Before Nathan could say anything else, the line went dead. His hand clenched the phone, his mind racing with questions. What was happening? Why hadn't Ethan given him any details? He stood up, feeling the weight of the situation settling on him. He knew, deep down, this wasn't just another one of Ethan's usual calls asking for a favor. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. Moments later, as Nathan paced around his living room, a knock at the door startled him. It was late, too late for anyone to be visiting. He walked toward the door cautiously, opening it just a crack. And there he was, Ethan. Nathan's breath caught in his throat. His brother stood in the doorway, barely able to stand, covered in bruises, his face a patchwork of swelling and cuts. His clothes were torn, and he seemed to be struggling just to hold himself upright. The sight struck Nathan hard, a sharp wave of disbelief washing over him. Ethan stumbled into the entryway, and Nathan quickly caught him, his body stiff with shock. I need to get away," Ethan rasped, his voice weak, trembling. "I can't stay there, Nathan. I'm being hurt." His voice broke. Nathan's mind spun as he helped Ethan to a chair, his heart pounding in his chest. "What happened to you?" Nathan asked, his voice tight, but Ethan just shook his head, tears welling up in his eyes. Kristen's family, they've been doing this for months, Nathan. I've tried to protect her, but I can't anymore. They've hurt me, and now I need to get out. I need you to take my place, just for a few weeks." The words hit Nathan like a ton of bricks. His thoughts blurred, his sense of reality suddenly slipping. Ethan, his twin, his brother, who had always seemed so invincible, was being abused. His mind tried to make sense of it, but there was no explanation, no simple answer. "What do you mean, take your place?" Nathan asked, his voice a whisper of disbelief. "I'm asking you," Ethan's voice was barely audible now, to pretend to be me. I need you to go to my house, take care of things, stay there while I hide. Nathan's hands shook as he helped Ethan sit back. You're asking me to lie? To take over your life? He shook his head in disbelief. What about Kristen? What about your family? They won't stop, Ethan said, his eyes pleading. You have to do this for me, Nathan. For both of us. Nathan's world tilted. His mind screamed at him, told him to walk away, to call the police, to get help. But he couldn't. Not when Ethan was looking at him like that, broken and desperate. He didn't know it yet, but his life, the life he'd worked so hard to build, was about to change forever. As the night wore on, Nathan helped Ethan get settled on the couch, his body trembling as sleep finally overtook him. But Nathan couldn't rest. He kept thinking about the request, about Ethan's words. He'd always thought of himself as a person of logic, reason. He followed rules, laws, and order. But now, here he was, about to dive into a web of deception, stepping into a role that wasn't his. The phone call, the bruises, the pleading eyes, it all felt like something out of a nightmare. He had no idea what he was getting into, but somehow he knew he couldn't turn his back on his brother. Not now. Not when Ethan needed him the most. The next few days were a blur of preparations. Nathan didn't have time to think about what he was doing. He was too busy trying to adapt to his brother's life, his home, his family, his role. It was unsettling, pretending to be someone else, and Nathan felt out of place with every step he took. He had his first real confrontation with Kristen a few days later. The tension between them was thick, suffocating. She denied everything. Her eyes filled with anger and discomfort as she tried to explain away the situation. But Nathan wasn't convinced. Kristen, Nathan said, his voice calm but firm, something's wrong here. Ethan needs help, and so do you. She recoiled at his words, but Nathan could see the truth in her eyes. He just wasn't sure yet if she would admit it. The first time Nathan met Ethan's brothers-in-law, Blake and Craig, he felt like an intruder in his own life. They looked at him strangely, their hostility barely hidden. There was something about them, something cold. Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that they were more involved in Ethan's situation than they were letting on. In the days that followed, Nathan became increasingly suspicious. Something was off. As he dug deeper, he began to see the cracks in the family's carefully crafted facade. Blake and Craig's hostility, Kristen's defensive attitude, Ethan's cryptic comments. It all led to one conclusion. This family was hiding something far worse than he could have imagined. Late one night, as he snooped through Kristen's office, looking for any clue that could explain the growing tension, Nathan heard footsteps approaching. His heart raced, but he quickly ducked into a corner, hiding just in time as Blake and Craig entered the room. He waited, breathless, as they talked, their words barely audible. His mind raced as he realized what they were hiding, a financial conspiracy. Ethan's abuse was no accident. It was orchestrated, covered up by those closest to him. And then, in a moment of reckless desperation, Nathan found it, a document, hidden away in a safe, detailing payments to an unknown account. It wasn't just about the abuse. It was about control, money, and power. As Nathan slipped the document into his pocket, the realization hit him like a freight train. He had just uncovered something much bigger than he had ever expected, and now there was no turning back. As Nathan walked out of Kristen's office, he felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. He was about to confront Ethan and Kristen with the truth, but just as he reached the living room, his phone rang. The voice on the other end was cold, cryptic. "Keep the document, Nathan," the voice warned. "But if you want it to stay hidden, you'll do exactly as I say, or it gets exposed." Nathan's stomach dropped. The stakes had just gotten even higher. He wasn't just fighting for his brother anymore. He was fighting for his life. Nathan stared at the summons on his desk. It had come without warning. An urgent request to appear for a court hearing regarding the family's inheritance and property distribution. The timing was too precise, almost too convenient. He could feel his pulse quicken as he scanned the document, the words blurring together. This wasn't just a random hearing. This was a calculated move. Someone, somewhere, had pushed this forward to put him at a disadvantage. His first instinct was to call his lawyer, but he hesitated. Who could he trust? Ethan's family was now his family, but the lies, the manipulation, they were suffocating him. He had already stepped into a role that didn't belong to him. Ethan's life was slipping through his fingers, and Nathan's grip on his own life was weakening by the second. He set the document down and rubbed his temples, trying to make sense of it. The timing of the hearing felt off like a trap. Why rush everything? Why now? Nathan knew that the moment he walked into that courtroom, he would be walking into a battlefield where the rules weren't just bent, they were twisted beyond recognition. The day of the hearing arrived, and Nathan stood outside the courthouse, his nerves tightening with each passing second. The grand stone steps leading to the entrance felt like they were towering over him. Every step he took seemed heavier than the last. He wasn't just fighting for Ethan anymore. He was fighting for his own survival. Inside, the courtroom was cold, sterile. The walls, lined with polished wood and marble, made the space feel even more suffocating. Nathan's mind raced as he looked around, trying to gauge the opposition, to find out who was truly on his side. The judge, an elderly woman with sharp eyes, took her seat, and the proceedings began. Jonathan, standing confidently across the room, flashed Nathan a cold, mocking smile. He knew the game. He had always known it. The deep-seated arrogance in his expression was enough to make Nathan's blood boil. He was playing his cards well, as if he had already won. But Nathan wasn't going to back down. Not now. The first challenge came quickly. Jonathan's legal team presented their case, pushing the argument that Ethan had been mentally unstable and incapable of managing his own affairs. The papers they presented were designed to undermine Ethan's credibility, and Nathan's by extension. But it wasn't just a case. It was a war. Nathan sat still, trying to calm the storm brewing inside him. His fingers twitched, itching for a response, but he held his composure. He needed to think, to move carefully. Every word, every action could be used against him. He wouldn't make the mistake of rushing into something without a plan. Then, as if fate itself had conspired against him, the first twist came. As Nathan reviewed the documents Ethan had left behind, a faint glimmer of hope flickered within him. He found something hidden, something critical, a will. The true nature of the family's holdings was revealed within its pages. The depth of Ethan's entanglement in shady deals and investments was laid bare in this document. But the implications of what he had uncovered were enormous. Exposing this could ruin everything. It would not only destroy Ethan's reputation, but it could unravel the very fabric of the family Nathan had entered. Emotion twisted inside him, disbelief at how deep the corruption ran, betrayal by the very people who should have been there for him, his brother's family, who had kept him in the dark for so long. He was on the verge of destroying everything. But then, the weight of the decision settled. He wasn't just fighting for Ethan anymore. He was fighting to protect the truth. Nathan wasn't sure if he was prepared for the next confrontation, but it was inevitable. Jonathan's voice echoed in his mind, sharp and cutting as he approached. "Nathan," Jonathan said with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, "you really think you can win this?" The challenge in Jonathan's voice was unmistakable. He was playing his part well, manipulating, prodding, digging for weaknesses. Nathan had known men like him before. Cold, calculating, willing to destroy everything to keep their grip on power. "Take the deal, Nathan," Jonathan urged. "You don't want to drag this on. It's clear you don't have the evidence to win." Nathan clenched his fists. "I'm not interested in your deals. You're hiding something, Jonathan, and I'm going to find out what." Jonathan's smile faltered for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. "I'm not the one hiding, Nathan. It's Ethan who's been hiding all along." But Jonathan wasn't done. In a move that left Nathan speechless, Jonathan presented false evidence in court, an expertly forged document that portrayed Ethan as mentally unstable, a man incapable of making rational decisions. The document was flawless, meticulously crafted to discredit everything Nathan was trying to accomplish. Nathan's breath caught in his throat. This was a masterstroke, a calculated blow aimed at his credibility. His stomach turned as he realized what Jonathan was trying to do. It was the final, deadly move in this game of power. The evidence wasn't just damaging, it was devastating. His mind raced. How could he possibly fight back against something so meticulously forged? He couldn't let this stand, but the cost of challenging the evidence would be high. If he exposed it, he risked losing everything. But if he didn't, it would cost him his integrity and possibly Ethan's future. Nathan's counterattack came swiftly. Using his legal expertise, he tracked down the inconsistencies within the document and uncovered its true origins. It had been doctored, altered by one of Jonathan's associates. Nathan traced the document back to the family's vault, where the original version had been hidden away, untouched by Jonathan's manipulation. His heart pounded with triumph, but the victory felt hollow. This was just the beginning. The real battle was far from over. As much as he wanted to rest, he knew that each moment was bringing him closer to something more dangerous. This wasn't just a legal fight, it was a fight for his survival. Kristen's return was inevitable. She had been watching, waiting for Nathan to make his move. When she finally confronted him, her voice was smooth but laced with danger. "You're digging too deep, Nathan," she warned. "You're uncovering things that should stay buried." Her words were a temptation, a sharp contrast to the moral line Nathan had drawn for himself. She offered him a deal, one that would promise him everything he wanted in exchange for his silence. Nathan's mind spun. She wanted him to drop the legal battle, to turn away from the truth for the sake of his own gain. But Nathan wasn't that man. Not anymore. "I won't stop Kristen," he said, his voice low and steady. "This isn't about money or power. It's about the truth." Kristen's eyes narrowed, her mask of composure slipping for just a second. "Then you'll destroy everything, Nathan." The next twist hit like a freight train. Nathan uncovered a dark secret. Kristen had been working with Jonathan all along. She wasn't on Ethan's side. She had been using him, playing both sides of the game to secure her place in the family's wealth. Nathan's heart sank. This wasn't just betrayal, it was the worst kind. He had trusted her, and now he realized she had been manipulating him from the start. Just when Nathan thought the walls were closing in, the unexpected happened. An unexpected witness appeared in court, someone who had ties to Jonathan and was a highly credible source. The witness's testimony rocked the case, throwing Nathan's strategy into disarray. Frustration simmered within him as the weight of the legal battle grew unbearable. This wasn't just about winning anymore, it was about survival. As the chapter neared its end, Nathan uncovered the final, devastating piece of evidence, an old family letter, one that revealed the true reason Ethan had been targeted by his in-laws. The letter contained the kind of truth that could destroy everything: Ethan's reputation, his life, and Nathan's future. Nathan stood frozen, the letter heavy in his hands. It was the kind of truth that couldn't be buried, but revealing it would come at a price. Exposing the letter could end the family's lies, but it would also ruin everything Ethan had worked for. The letter weighed heavily in my hands, Nathan thought, his heart heavy with the weight of the decision. It was a truth too dangerous to unleash and too important to bury. The weight of the truth pressed heavily on Nathan's chest. The past few days had blurred into a frenzy of revelations and deceit. He had uncovered Ethan's life, Kristen's betrayal, and the dark truths buried deep within the family. Each secret was a blow, each lie a knife twisting deeper. He couldn't shake the nagging feeling that the worst was yet to come. But now he had no choice. The final confrontation was here. Nathan sat in his study, the soft glow of a desk lamp casting long shadows across the room. His fingers brushed the edge of the papers before him, each one a key to unraveling the conspiracy against Ethan. But they were more than just documents. They were his lifeline. He couldn't afford to make a mistake now. Emotion stirred within him. Sadness, yes, but also clarity. For the first time, he knew exactly what he had to do. It wasn't just about Ethan anymore. It was about reclaiming his dignity. Exposing the truth wasn't for revenge. It was for peace, for closure, and for the chance to move forward. But first, he had to face the family. The dinner was set. Nathan had invited everyone: Kristen, Frank, Blake, Craig, every last one of them. They would hear the truth, and they would hear it from him. It was time to shatter their carefully constructed world of lies. The family gathered in the dining room, a cold formality settling over the evening. Nathan could sense the tension in the air. No one spoke. The clinking of silverware against porcelain was the only sound that broke the silence, and even that seemed hollow. Kristen sat at the head of the table, her posture rigid. Frank's face was hard, his jaw clenched. Blake and Craig exchanged glances, their eyes narrowing when they noticed Nathan's determined expression. They knew something was coming. They just didn't know what. Emotion bubbled within Nathan, but he held it in check. This wasn't about them. This was about Ethan. And no matter what it cost him, he was going to make sure that the truth was exposed. He stood, slowly and deliberately, his voice breaking the silence. "I have something to say." The room stilled. Everyone turned to look at him. But Nathan only had eyes for Kristen. He had known, deep down, that this moment would come. And now that it was here, there was no turning back. Nathan pulled the letter from his jacket pocket, the weight of it unmistakable. He placed it on the table, his fingers brushing the edges of the paper. He could feel every eye on him as he unfolded it, the family's collective breath held. "This," Nathan began, his voice steady, "is a letter from Ethan to our mother. It's been hidden by you, Kristen, hidden from all of us. And in it, Ethan reveals everything." Emotion gripped him as he looked up at Kristen. The abuse, the manipulation, the lies you've told. Kristen's face drained of color. Her lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. The room was suffocating. Everyone knew it, and yet no one could escape it. Nathan read the letter aloud, his voice barely a whisper. Ethan was terrified. He felt trapped. But you kept him locked in his fear. You hid the truth. And for what? To protect your family's name. The letter dropped from his hands, its words hanging in the air like a suffocating fog. Kristen trembled, her face flushed with guilt and denial. Frank's expression remained unchanged, but his eyes flickered with something unreadable. Blake and Craig exchanged uneasy glances, their hostility shifting to confusion. Emotion pulsed within Nathan. He had exposed the truth, and it felt like a victory, but it was bittersweet. The damage was done. No matter what happened next, the family could never go back to the way it was. The silence stretched on. No one moved. Then, finally, Kristen spoke, her voice trembling. You don't understand, Nathan. I didn't have a choice. Frank made me do it. Her words hung in the air like a confession. Nathan's heart tightened. This was it, the final betrayal. I've been protecting him. For years. Ethan was becoming a liability. Too much trouble. And Frank, he wouldn't let me do anything else. Nathan's mind reeled. Kristen had been hiding the truth all along, but there was more. Frank's influence had twisted everything. The entire family had been complicit in this. The weight of it all pressed down on him like an iron fist. But Nathan wasn't done yet. He had one last piece of ammunition, a final twist that would bring everything into focus. Kristen, he said, his voice cold but steady. You think this ends with you? No, it ends with Frank. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small device, pressing a button. A recording began to play. Frank's voice, low and menacing, speaking of fraudulent transactions, of schemes designed to bleed Ethan dry, to destroy his financial future in order to cover up his own dirty dealings. The room fell silent again. Frank's face turned pale. He stood up, knocking his chair over in the process. You can't, he started, but the words died in his throat. Don't try to deny it, Nathan said. I have everything. The room exploded in chaos. Frank tried to maintain control, but the walls were closing in. He had no escape now. The truth was out. But it wasn't just Frank who was under fire. The family was divided. Kristen, her face pale, had lost everything she had fought to protect. Blake and Craig stood silent, their hands clenched into fists, unsure of where their loyalties now lay. The family had fractured, torn apart by the very secrets they had tried to bury. As the dust settled, Nathan turned his attention back to Kristen. He could see the guilt written on her face, but also something else, a glimmer of something softer. Kristen, Nathan said, his voice gentler than he expected, I'm not here to destroy you. I'm here to fix this. But first, you have to make things right. For Ethan. For everyone. Kristen looked at him, her eyes filled with tears. What do you want me to do? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Nathan paused for a moment. He wasn't offering forgiveness, not yet. But he was offering something else. Testify against Frank. Help me protect Ethan. And make sure no one else suffers. The room was still, the weight of the moment pressing down on them all. Finally, Kristen nodded, her voice breaking. I'll do it. I'll testify. But only if Ethan's future is safe. Nathan exhaled slowly. He had won, but it was a Pyrrhic victory. The family was shattered. The truth had come at a high cost. As Kristen's words hung in the air, Nathan realized something. The past had been a cage, but they now had a chance to break free.